Hello, we're watching Squish Vision. I am furious, absolutely livid. It's finally happened. Russell T Davies has ruined Doctor Who. Confirmed. I fell asleep. It was quarter to midnight. No, half past midnight. I was exhausted. I was like, I'd rather have a coffee. Alexa, volume 0. I'd rather have a coffee whilst watching Doctor Who, so I won't drink one before a nap, but I'm exhausted, so I'll have a nap. Had a nap at half past. Woke up, it was like probably 7 in the morning, and my phone had died during the night because I wasn't expecting to fall asleep, so I put it on charge. And I didn't watch Doctor Who when it came on because I was asleep. I mean, to be fair, that has happened like during some evening broadcasts, like once or twice. But it was gonna happen with this too. I knew it, and it did, and I'm furious. I can't believe it. I'm so angry. And I'm watching the Who and it's midday, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm a fake fan. Like, why would you do this to me, Russell? Why? Anyway, this episode's great, by the way. Oh, at least it was mostly. I saw this episode that makes you think, and I don't know if it's making me think because it was clever or because it was not clever enough, and it's trying to be cleverer than it is. But it was a very folk horror episode of Doctor Who, which I think was the intent. You know, embrace a lot of the. You know, it was set in a Wales village. Or at least part of it was. Just put off, just like to kick off from the top. The concept of like the premise, a woman is always 73 feet away, 73 yards away from you at all times. Is saying something, but you can't hear her, you can't see their face properly. They're doing some gestures with their hands. And every time someone goes to speak to them, they run away from you in terror. Just as like a short horror, folk horror premise is just it's perfect. It's like it's exactly what you kind of want to base the short horror premise on. Like it's you want to pick a very kind of basic kind of concept and not expand too much on it, but expand a wee bit on it. And not even that, just like play around with that and like run with that. But like even as a short story, the idea that someone like if the entire thing was just someone with real lives and there's some, I mean that's pretty much what it is. That's pretty much what the story was, and that was such a brilliant thing. So I can't fault that. And like the build up towards it. So you know the Doctor steps on a fairy ring. Also, I like that the show is making it explicit. Well, I don't know if I like it or not. The show is making it explicit that they're not moving, but they're kind of they're making a deliberate reach from science fiction. Why is this camera moving? They're making a deliberate reach from science fiction into science. Well, into supernatural, really. They kind of shift. I mean, they're not. People forget, but these two genres aren't too far apart. And you know, horror, sci-fi comes from horror, so jumping from sci-fi to horror to sci-fi is very, very easily done. It's wrestling the concept of pulp fiction and all that thing, so it's not an issue. And I think it's actually the right. I think it's the right direction to take Doctor Who. I think it's a natural direction to Doctor Who. I think it's not one that. I mean, it is one that we've played on before. A lot of Tom Baker's stories explored with like gothic horror, but I think it was always confirmed that those were like secretly like it was gothic horror, and it was until it was like sci-fi. I think there are very few and far between. I think this is Doctor embracing in which the classic series has kind of like touched upon and been and played around with the idea that the supernatural may exist, and even like Hartnell, you know, I think there's because I've been watching all the episodes of Doctor Who that I haven't yet seen before on iPlayer, and when I watched The Chase for the first time, it's obviously the episode where they go into the haunted mansion, and it's revealed by it's like it revealed in the end, unbeknownst to all the TARDIS crew, that it's actually a faulty tourist attraction, and they're all robots in there. But the Doctor doesn't ever realize that. So the Doctor's like, well, maybe we've just stepped into that weird kind of area of the mind where supernatural exists. Kind of, I think that it is the speculation they come up with. It's not a great kind of theory, but it's what they come up with. And I think Doctor Who's always embraced the possibility of supernatural being a thing. And it's Arthur C. Clarke's third law: sufficiently advanced magic is indistinguishable from science. Sorry, the other way around. But I mean, the fact that you can confuse them is the point, really. So yeah, this kind of Kate being like, we deal with the extraterrestrial and occasionally the supernatural, increasingly more so now, I think is a deliberate kind of trend. And I think it's made pretty much explicit with Russell T Davies' behind the scenes content about kind of the Toymaker and Assault and everything that kind of happened after that. And I think this is perhaps the most of that we've seen so far. You could argue that with the time travel element being put into it at the end, it is still science fiction, but I think actually there's enough kind of ambiguity there. But yeah, I mean, as a Doctor Light episode, it's a fun premise to put Millie Gibson, Ruby Sunday into being they're still a relatively green companion, and they say themselves, the Doctor suddenly vanishes, but presents with a problem which is uniquely revolving around them, and it's like it's kind of actually kind of nice that they see the problem and they don't immediately try to solve it, because other companions might see a problem and feel like, okay, well, what would the Doctor do? What is this problem? But Ruby's like, I just don't know, because she's that new, and it's kind of like, well, that's what I would probably do in a similar situation if I wasn't meta where I was a companion in a Doctor Who serial and I was just confronted with this problem. I'd probably just do the exact same thing, and it's an interesting concept. I like the fact that we're leading into the kind of meta value of it. So she goes to this very kind of she goes to this pub, and it's I love how it's shot out deliberately, like everything in that pub scene is like deliberately self-aware, and then it proves, and then in the end it kind of proves to be kind of a joke. But for example, you've got everyone kind of plays, apart from the girl sitting across the Goth, she doesn't really do much except kind of validate the Goth. It's kind of like as a kind of counterbalance to the Goth's presence, I guess. But like you've got the different kind of, I wouldn't even say they were stereotypes, but you've got the different kind of roles, you've got the different kind of players in the chessboard. If the entire episode, as it kind of almost suggests it was going to be, was revolving around those people trapped in a pub, you could see how they would all evolve and have their own arcs and their own kind of personal traumas that could get brought in. Horror as a genre is meant to explore the human psyche. It's meant to explore the human flaw. It's meant to, when you write a good horror, each character is meant to represent a proverbial sin, and the horror, the monster, is challenging those sins and punishing you for those sins and stuff. And that's kind of the point of a horror as a genre. But when it proves that actually that's not the case. But it's shot in a way which kind of very much implies that everyone gets a single, like, as often is the case in like these kind of stories, everyone gets like people get their single shot, so the camera's often like slightly canted, either on a roll angle, or sometimes it's I mean, this isn't strictly canted, but it's shot at an angle that's a bit more wider than you would tend to. It's not as dead on as you would normally do for a single. It's more kind of, so you feel like there's something wrong. There's something about the lens distance which kind of creates this kind of more anamorphic field, so you kind of feel a bit more kind of shut and closed around a person. It's all that kind of normal like horror filming kind of tropes. Just mute that because I forgot to do it before and it's loud. And then obviously it's kind of revealed at the end that they're all taking the piss out of Ruby, which is funny, and wasn't expected. And I generally like I was a lot of the promotional material and the way I was drawn into the episode and the way episode makes you drawn in would make you think a majority of the episode is probably gonna be set around this pub, perhaps even around this village, the monster in the house kind of genre. But it's revealed that's not going to be the case, and we spend actually relatively not long, and we spend we leave the village, we don't really go back to the village until the end of the episode. But it's also kind of a bit weird because like they do all see that random woman in the distance, so it's like it's like how like someone comes into a pub. It's like I'm being stalked, and you take the piss out of them for being supernatural, but there is a weird ghost woman stalking her, and you can all see that. But I guess it does kind of account for that. She does later on say to Kate there might be a perception filter around the woman that kind of makes most people not really question the fact that that's weird. That's a weird thing to be following someone. And eventually, kind of, Ruby just kind of accepts her fate. I mean, she's not settled by it, but she's kind of like she leaves the village. She's got no other options. She goes home. I do like the sequence where she's on the train, and every time she looks out the window, the woman is always there, 73 yards away. I don't know if this was deliberate, it was being invoked, but I'm one of those children who, like, when I was bored on a long journey, I'd look out the window, and I would imagine something chasing, and I've seen memes which kind of imply that this is, like, some kind of, like, universal thing children do. You all ask why children universally all kind of equally agree that we were all going to do that. It's kind of freaky when you think about it. But it's kind of evocative of that, and so that's kind of actually kind of freaky that, you've got this woman who kind of is just, like, you look out the window of a train, and she's always 73 feet away, and it's like, why was that a thing I imagined when I was a child? She goes home. She tells her mum about this thing, and because Ruby isn't entirely genre savvy, agrees far too easily to a plan where her mother goes and speaks to this person, even though two previous people who've spoken to this woman have all fled away from Ruby and never come back. So she does that. And she predictably flees. I guess Ruby's like was trusting that her mother wouldn't be the person to do that. But if that was me, I'd be like, no, absolutely no one I love goes to speak to this woman. Send someone disposable. There are plenty of disposable people in my life, I'm sure, who I could have go sent to this woman, who would tell me if they could, and if they couldn't, they couldn't. But whatever. Her mother flees, and then eventually she locks her out of her house and like files an injunction against her. So Ruby, I think, has to move to Wales. She's approached by Kate Stewart. We kind of gloss over how and why, but I guess we just take it for granted now that the unit has that kind of interesting companions. And Kate puts forward her plan of, she confirms, scientifically that this individual exists, there's something supernatural about them. She puts forward a plan to kind of detain the creature, the woman, whoever she is. But, and it's set up kind of well. I like that Kate Stewart. You couldn't imagine this happening to the Brigadier, and I think people would be up in arms if this happened to the Brigadier. I do like that Kate Stewart isn't like just a carbon copy female version of the Brigadier. She is much more of a flawed character. She is much more vulnerable. She's much less kind of on the ball of things, because she's not just a straightforward, no nonsense military type. She's a much more fleshed out person. Not to say obviously that the Brigadier isn't fleshed out, but he is very much a cardboard. No, that's unfair. He's one thing, and he hasn't got. There isn't much in the way of depth about the Brigadier, which is fine. He's a brilliant character. The Brigadier is one of my favorite characters of all time. But obviously, much as the way of TV back in the days, you don't tend to like. And I think Kate Stewart's more fleshed out. I do think she's a weaker character overall. But I do. I'm tendencing here the point I'm trying to make. In the end, I like that she's much more vulnerable and flawed character than the Brigadier. Like, I couldn't imagine the Brigadier falling into this obvious trap of hubris of being like, oh, it's fine, we all have the training, we can deal with this. Brigadier does have a degree of arrogance, but I don't think he has that kind of degree of hubris, if that makes sense. She kind of sends everyone forward perfectly, like, sure that they've got the defense against it. Like, she puts all her resources into this. She doesn't do anything to defend herself or remove herself from the situation. And of course, we're all affected, and that leaves Ruby without this kind of thing. And then we get this nice montage where Ruby kind of jumps forward, I guess 7 and 5 and then 10 years. So she jumps to like 25 into 30 into 40. And it's 2024. Can we stop being optimistic with our old person makeup? We always, I think, far and few between have we ever aged up an actor, and it's been fairly real. I mean, I know you can't predict the future, right? But I feel the way they aged up Millie Gibson to be a 40-year-old Ruby is extremely optimistic. I mean, the way she looked when it was so optimistic that the shot of her in her 40s is in the trailer as one of the shots of one of the montage shots of Ruby that we stick on for like a while longer than we do. I think there's actually a montage. It's that first trailer where it goes changes and we snap cut between several shots of Ruby directly looking to camera, and well, actually from this episode as it turns out. And no one picked up the fact that this was an aged up Ruby at all. No one picked up on that fact. Even like people even took screenshots and like had different shots of Ruby from that kind of montage shot, and no one picked up on the fact that she was aged up. So I don't think much of the aged up makeup. I think they're being very optimistic about how Millie Gibson is going to look in her 40s. Very, very optimistic. Either that or it's a commentary on cosmetics, which could very easily be the case. But you know, people being cosmetics being the case that people's age much more gracefully, and like there are some people who have aged pretty gracefully, but I just don't think Ruby would look that good at 40 and then look that old at 80. You know, I mean, am I just me? I don't know, but whatever. So you have a 40-year-old Ruby who really doesn't act any different from 20-year-old Ruby. And it didn't sound that different. Yeah, that's the thing. We didn't really do much to her voice either, especially someone from like Northwest. I want to just put that. An 18-year-old Mancunian does not sound like a 40-year-old Mancunian. I have, people's voices change, but hey, whatever. So yeah, it's a 40-year-old. It comes on the news. There's this Welsh politician who's running for president, running for prime minister. I should probably bring up the name. I can't remember what it is now. And it's Chekhov's gun execution of what the doctor said earlier in the episode. Is this politician who is, in hindsight, I mean, I don't know. I was going to say kind of an obvious Chekhov's gun, but it does seem like the kind of rambling the Doctor would do. I don't know. It's kind of on the cusp of, on the fence of. It's kind of on the fence of. This is an obvious Chekhov's gun for the episode, but also the Doctor kind of does bring up these non-sequitur examples. So, and he is they are time sensitive beings, so maybe we just knew of his information would be relevant. And after this, the episode gets a bit muddled for me, and maybe I need to be watching. This is the thing where I'm not sure if it's being too clever or not clever enough, and I'm trying to give it credit more when it's due. She realizes that everything with the woman has been building up to this, to her stopping this person, presumably getting into power, starting a nuclear war. Just to briefly, why is there like bits of egg on my screen? Just to briefly kind of like touch upon the kind of the politics part of this episode. I'm just trying to think. I don't think there's much in the way of deep political commentary here. I think the politician is literally meant to just be a very kind of I think the politician is meant to be just a very I'm losing my words. The politician is meant to be like a very kind of cardboard, evil, like. Well, I mean, Rosie Davis explained in Unleashed that the villain was like just extrapolating from basically online incel types, edgy edgy men on the internet who have quite extreme views. And I suppose so I don't. It's kind of a commentary, I guess, on current politics, but I don't think it's. I'm trying to. Okay, sorry. Let me read my brain. I'm trying to work out if there's any deeper political commentary here, but I think it's literally just some politicians are bad and want to like a war mongering, and I don't think it goes much deeper than that. And I mean, that doesn't need to. That's pretty like solid commentary as it is. I'm just trying to make sure. I'm just trying to make sure that Harris isn't being dumb and missing like a deeper level of commentary here. But I think it's pretty much just a case of here is a bad politician as just a foil for Ruby to kind of go against. So Ruby's like full of all this kind of drive that her purpose, the purpose of everything that's been happening over the last 27 years has been essentially to stop this politician from doing a nuclear war. And so she goes to the politician. So she decides that this means that she needs to be on the inside. So she goes to the office and is like, I'm going to volunteer. I'm happy to donate thousands of pounds to the cause. I just want to be in any kind of way. And then we kind of cut to her being very kind of like unmotivated and fed up and depressed, just holding coats. I don't know if this is meant to be a sight gag or what, but it's kind of like, so what was the entire point that she just had to go be present and then wait for the right moment? I guess that's fine. It's kind of like the build-up implied that she was going to be a bit more proactive in the wider kind of scheme of things and kind of just be like, I don't know what I'm trying to get at here. It just kind of seemed like there was a build-up and then a kind of a tunnel dip, and then things continued to be a bit muddy. So it was like it was all a build-up to something happening and something more proactive happening. It didn't quite pay off. There was that, I think, what was her name? Marty. There was a girl called Marty who, I guess it's implied that the politician kind of like manipulated, like possibly even abused into joining his campaign team so that he could basically be an abuser. I think that's the dark implication of Marty's whole thing, and why Marty is like the person who's like, oh, the politician is a monster. The entire reason why the politician wanted her on the team, you know, but it also seems to imply like she was meant. There was like another point to her being there, because like Ruby apologizes and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry it's taken me this long to intervene," as if like she needed to keep Marty around. But the only kind of payoff to what Marty's purpose there is to confirm that, oh, I guess it might be because that she was, because the politician was keeping her around and like assuming he had full control over her, he was probably being a bit more honest. I guess that's a thing abusers do, right? They tell they like they're more open with the person they're abusing because they think they have full control of them. So then they're like, well, this person is an extension of me and my property, so obviously if I can tell them whatever I want, and they're not going to tell anyone else. And that might be so I guess, okay, maybe that was the part that just clicked for me then. So that was why Marty had to be around. And then presumably at some point, you know, he let slip to her that he was planning a week later, after his speech, to start that nuclear kind of thing. And that was Ruby's kind of go signal, and that's why she had to let her continue to be like involved in all this. But then I'm not sure why Ruby had to like, why there was like a particular acting, like this is Ruby's moment to act moment, if that makes sense. Do you get what I mean? I don't like, because why did Ruby have to wait to that moment? I guess she had to wait for a moment for there to be a moment where there was 73 yards between her and the Prime Minister. But why did that? But like, it could have been any moment where there was 73 yards between her and the Prime Minister, right? I'm missing something. I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know what it is I'm missing, but I feel like I'm missing something. And then after that, she continues to live like the next 40 years of her life. She gets old. She visits the TARDIS again. She's dying. And I guess the moment that she dies, it's revealed that she is the. And again, I'm extremely like muddled on what's actually happening here. So as she's dying, the woman in the distance moves close to her, but is facing away from her. I think she's facing away from her. And like comes closer and closer and closer. And what is it seems shot to be quite jump scary and isn't really scary when you realize what's actually happening. But it's I guess the director's like, here, let's just make it spooky. Comes closer and I guess melds with. And I don't know if the actress who plays the old woman is the same actress who plays. I can't tell if the actress who plays the old woman is the same actress who plays the eldest version of Ruby. I think no. I need to check the credits. But I think 73 yards credits. There's no separate credited person for the old version of Millie, which would seem to suggest that Hilary Hobson, who plays the woman, plays the old version of Millie rather. But I know in Unleashed, they say that Hilary Hobson says that she doesn't actually know anything. She's never given any lines, or she doesn't give any context about the old woman that she plays. Unleashed doesn't confirm that she plays the old woman, so I'm not sure if I'm just like missing something. I can't. I'm face blind, so I'm never gonna tell. And we don't see her in the episode anyway, so I don't know. If it's the same actress, but I guess it's implied that the old woman is an older version of Millie anyway, regardless of whether the actresses are the same. So. And then she goes, so she melds and she goes back to the moment. But she goes back to the moment, but like a bit earlier. So in the first time we go through all this, Ruby doesn't see the old woman until after Doctor disappears and after the fairy ring is broken. Whereas in this version, she appears before it happens. That's what stops the Doctor from breaking the circle and stops this thing from happening in the first place. Apparently. And it's like, well, okay, so what was the kind of the final like? It's kind of it gets muddled here. It's nothing's confirmed, and like ambiguity is fine. And like Russell Davies said, he will never tell anyone what Ruby, the woman, said to anyone who approached her, and it's very possible that he didn't even have to write anything because, like I said, some things are left off unclear. Certainly, what the woman was signing is revealed and Unleashed as just like nonsense sentences that have nothing to do with the episode, and I believe that. I think there is some like symbolic value of what she's saying. I think it has some. It's something about being given the small thing, being appreciative of it, and passing it back on. And you could twist that very easily to be a thematic relevance. But I think it's something that I would do when I'm like, I need them to do something. So I'm just gonna think of like the most loosely based thematic thing possible, so it's not completely irrelevant, but not think too deeply of it because it's not meant to be like, you're not meant to know. I think that's what's happened here. So that ambiguity is fine, but I'm a bit muddled on the kind of the how it works kind of thing. I don't know if I'm going to answer in this stream. I think I need to kind of stop, reflect, maybe hear some other people's interpretations, and we read the synopsis, maybe watch it back again, although I'm not one to rewatch things back again. I just don't. For me, the ending is kind of muddled. I think the premise sets a much stronger resolution. But I mean, also I think horror is the genre where you can get away with kind of just landing on a thematic kind of ambiguity rather than a technical explanation. And I think sometimes you explain things too much and you ruin a lot of the thematic kind of elements. So hard for me to really be sure really what how to kind of take away from this. Yeah. Pondering. What was the landing of this episode? I mean, I might be trying to look for like a more this episode than actually. This is what I'm saying. I'm not sure if it's trying to be clever than it is, or if I'm dumber than it is. because like question is why we don't know why the Doctor disappeared. What caused that? Like that's never explained. Um, and now that this version of Ruby doesn't go through that life story, is there a version of Ruby's life where that politician does come into power and starts a nuclear holocaust? Or has somehow this kind of like stopped that from happening? Is it like a closed loop situation? I don't know. It's very unclear. That's what's not landing the landing for me. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna figure it out. And my coffee's starting to hit, so I probably need to like end the stream soon. So I guess we'll end it there. If you realize something that I haven't realized, please let me know. Other than that, same time next week. Or not same time, earlier, because I will not fall asleep next week. Well, not at all.